Hello, and welcome to the Coach's Cup. This is Sonya Green from Sonya Green Coaching, and I'm here today to talk to you about kindness. This episode was inspired by something that happened recently, several events that happened recently, and kind of hang with me because I'm going to take you on a little journey today. It's not as linear as I sometimes am, but my son was home from school sick. He's had strep, and he wanted to go to McDonald's and get an icy, and so for his throat. And I took him to McDonald's, and we got up to the cashier, and I looked at the cashier. I have recently an important part of the story is that we've recently in the last couple of years moved back home where I grew up. And where neither of us have lived most of our lives. We've lived most of our lives away from home. But I looked at this cashier, and I thought at first he looked familiar, but as I was pulling away, I noticed his name tag, and I just had a flood of memories. This guy was probably about 5 or 6 years younger than me, and I remember being in 6th grade and he was in 1st grade. He was a big kid, he was overweight, and the kids teased him relentlessly every day, and I remember seeing him in the mornings as soon as he got into school, crying because he was bullied so much, and he had the same 1st grade teacher I had. And if you've listened to me for very long, listened to the podcast for very long, you've heard me talk about Miss Knuckles and what a hellish year that was for me and all the work that I've done on that. Well, he had her his year, and he was the kid that she chose to pick on. And so I remember seeing her in the hallway yelling at him crying. Like, I remember this kid in tears. I don't know that I have any memories of him ever smiling. And when I saw him and realized as we pulled away who it was, it really flooded me with all of those unexpected memories. And then I started thinking about yesterday was my son's awards day. He's in the 3rd grade, and he has had the last 2 years just fantastic teachers. They've been so loving and so kind. And I just thought about the difference a little kindness can do in all of our lives, whether we're, in 3rd grade or 1st grade, or whether we're adults. Kindness, a small, kind word can change someone's day. As adults, we don't have the luxury of walking around crying the way that I remember this kid doing. I say luxury, what I mean by that. We can't walk around wearing our feelings, obviously, most of the time. That doesn't mean we don't need to take time for our feelings, but that's another podcast. But the difference in a hug, a kind word, a smile across the room to somebody who needs some encouragement, how much that can change their day and maybe even their lives. I don't know anything about this man's life. What his life was like at home when he was in 1st grade, what his life is like now. But we have so many things that we carry. I was able to overcome the things that happened to me in that first grade experience because I had a supportive home life, supportive family. And I still had to do a lot of work. There are still things that I had to work through in therapy, work through in mindset work, to get through that. And on the one hand, it made me stronger for doing it. But on the other hand, don't we all have enough things to overcome without dealing with unkindness, with trauma in that case? And I was just thinking about the choices that kindness allows us to make on a daily basis. If someone has been kind to me, it's much easier to reach out to somebody else. It doesn't mean I can't do it if they've been unkind, but my mind is already in a place where I am willing to give, to be empathetic, to help somebody. If I have to first overcome someone else's unkindness, then that may hinder me from being my best. So, offering kindness to others opens up their choices for what they do on the drive home, when they're at their own jobs. And I want to encourage all of us to think from a place of kindness, to meet our mornings, meet our work days, meet our maybe even our strained relationships with kindness, to have a goal that we are going to lift people up today. And it's something I have to do on a daily basis, right? Because it's so easy to get busy and to get focused on my own things. It's so easy to let somebody who just cut me off in traffic, let that affect my day and the choices that I make the next time, you know, I have the opportunity to be nice to somebody else. If we come at every day, if we reset to kindness, we are opening up not just more options, more good options for our own days, but we're opening up more good options for someone else's day. And that leads me to thinking about the kindness that we have with ourselves. Thinking about this grown man, in his mid-40s now, I assume. It was easy thinking about this grown man who's in his mid-40s now. Like I said, I know nothing about what his life has been like. I hope that he, like me, was able to overcome all of the bullying, the teacher. I hope that he was able to overcome all of that. But many times, what that teaches us to do is to turn that bullying and that unkindness in on ourselves. And as I was looking at him today, I saw that 6-year-old boy. And I was thinking about myself as that 6-year-old first grader. I would never be unkind to her. I would never say the things to her that I have at times said to myself as an adult. With imposter syndrome, it was very easy for me to say, well, that was just a fluke, Sonya. You're a nice person and people like you, but if it hadn't been for that, you wouldn't have got that. Or you just did that, or you just were given that opportunity because they knew who you were, they knew who your family was. You didn't earn it. I wouldn't look at 6-year-old Sonya and say that to her. And so when we think about unkindness, we need to extend, or when we think about kindness, rather, we need to extend that to ourselves as well. We are the person in communication with ourselves most often, right? We run into other people during the day that can certainly affect our day with our interactions with them. But when we do that reset every morning to be kind, being kind to ourselves is the first stop. That's where we get to practice. And when you start talking to yourself in a way that isn't kind, take that image of yourself as a child and think, would I say that to her? Would I tell her the things that I'm saying to myself right now? I was dealing with enough at school, right? I didn't need my own added dialogue or monologue added into that. So be kind to yourself first. Because ultimately, this is something that Brené Brown tells us, and, um, it really stopped me in my tracks the first time I heard her say this. She says that we can never love anyone else more than we love ourselves. She's hardly the first person to say that, but think about that for a minute. It's easy to argue with it. If you're a parent especially, it's easy to argue with it. If you have, a partner whom you love, it's easy to say, "Oh, no, no, no. I I hate myself. I hate the way I do this. Hate the way I look, but I love my partner. I love my children." But the truth of the matter is, we love with what we practice. And what I mean by that is this: if we practice daily loving ourselves through the hard things, then we can love our people with that same level of strength. But when we get hit in our shame spot, wherever that is, for me as a little kid, a lot of times it was my weight. So I can love somebody equal to the way I love myself until I get hit in whatever that shame spot is with them. So, for instance, my son comes home from school and tells me, "The kids were making fun of me, Mom, today. They said that that I took up 2 seats instead of 1." In that moment, how I react has everything to do with the work I've done on loving myself, because I can respond 2 ways to that. I can say, "Well, honey, I told you you need to quit eating all those snacks in between your meals. Honey, I told you you're eating too much for dinner." That's the moment. That is or I can say to him, "Oh, honey, that's tough. I know what that feels like, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry that they were cruel and they were unkind to you because I've been there, and that's not an easy place to be." Those are our options. If we have practiced loving ourselves, then we can extend that love and that empathy to that person whom we love. If we haven't practiced loving ourselves, then we're going to reach out to them. We're going to respond to them in the same way that we respond to ourselves in our head. Because that's our go-to. That's the thing that we jump to. So, kindness is important for other people. You know, it's easy to look at the world today and to see the violence, to see the road rage, to see a lot of negative things. But it's also easy, if we practice, to see the good and to be part of that good. Each day, I know it's cliche to say that we get to decide each day how we show up, and that, you know, that kindness is a better way to live. Of course it is. But it's not just better for everybody in the world. It's not just better for the way the day runs, you know. It's better for us. It makes us more capable of achieving our goals. It puts us in a frame of mind to love our people, whomever they are. Kindness benefits everyone. And it's not always easy. It's not always the first thing we jump to. But it's definitely the better option, always. So that, you know, the one thing that I knew for sure as a professor was that I didn't want anybody looking at me and sharing a story someday about the way I had been unkind to them, the way I had traumatized them. I knew that for a fact. And that doesn't mean I always made the best choices and said the right things. There was a time when I struggled to love myself, and that showed up in the classroom. And it haunted me. I've told those stories before on the podcast. You know, those were not my finest moments. They were part of my journey, part of my growth, but not what I wanted to share with the world. So kindness is a practice, and it's something that we have to recommit to every day. But if we love ourselves first, if we're kind to ourselves first, then we can be kind to all of those people out there who need some kindness in their lives, because we don't know. We don't know what they have to deal with, and we surely don't need to add to it. So I know this has been kind of a different kind of podcast than usual. I hope you didn't think it was too preachy. It really was kind of more off the cuff than I usually do, unplanned. But I hope that you take something from it, and I hope you share your kindness with somebody else today. And even more, I hope you share it with 6-year-old you, and love yourself a little bit harder than you did yesterday. If you're looking for coaching, you can find me at sonyagreencoaching.com. You can DM me on Instagram at Sonya_green coaching, or on Facebook on the Coach's Cut podcast page, or on my Facebook page, Sonya Green Coaching. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.